Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai coming at you live with a video. Well, I know I usually follow a pretty straightforward formula when it comes to sword reviews. I do the unboxing, I geek the shit out over the new sword. Everybody does. I have nothing but praise for the new sword when I get it, unless I immediately find something wrong with it, which I noted that the Kashira was loose in my unboxing, if I remember correctly. And at the time I said it wasn't a problem. Well, turned out to be a little bit of a problem. But I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so this is a review of the Cold Steel Warrior O Series katana. And also, I know I usually do unboxing review, cutting video on unboxing, cutting video review, or unboxing, cutting video combined with review. I've already done the cutting with this sword. And I cut water bottles. I've done some abusive testing. Yes, I took this out into my dad's backyard. I started wailing on branches, saplings, and this thing is a fucking monster. It went through everything. Even when I started chopping on a 2-inch thick branch and started going at it like a samurai lumberjack, it still chopped through the son of a bitch. Didn't do anything to the blade. Didn't even tweak it. It's perfectly dead straight still. But I will be doing the cutting video after I do the review of this sword. So without further do's, don'ts, and probably shouldn'ts, let's get into the meat of the review. First, I'm going to give you the descriptions or the specifications of this sword from Cult of Athena, where I bought it. The price for this sword is $678.95, and that is before tax and shipping. I bought it with the Cult of Athena's new payment option. Right here. With Sizzle. Or Zezzle, or whatever the hell it's called. Basically, what you do is, when you go to checkout, you hit the button that says Zezzle. It will take you to Zezzle. You'll make an account with Zezzle. And what it does is, it splits your payment up into 4 separate payments. Bi-weekly. So that means every second week you make a payment. Over a 6-week period. So 4 payments spread out over 6 weeks or 8 weeks, something like that. But what happens is you actually get sent the sword after you've made your initial down payment. So after you make your first payment, you send you the sword, and you have the sword until you've paid it off. I've bought my Dragon King Winter Sun katana, and I've bought my and this Cold Steel katana from Cult of Athena. It usually takes about a week to 2 weeks for them to ship it. Of course, I live in Indiana, and Cult of Athena is based in Illinois, so I'm like a 5-hour drive away from their facilities. So, yay me. But in any case, I ended up paying $700 plus something, which is still cheaper than if you go to Cold Steel's website directly, where you're going to pay $800 to $900 for this sword. So yeah, you save about $200 to $300 going through Cult of Athena or other authorized retailers most of the time. This sword used to be on Swords of Might and Amazon as well, but they've since discontinued it on Swords of Might, and Amazon doesn't even list it anymore. I believe they list it if you look hard enough, but they usually just list the Cold Steel Warrior katana and not Warrior O katana. There's a difference of about, I think, 8 inches of steel. And in a fight, 8 inches of steel is the difference between cutting someone's neck completely in half and just basically skinning it. But that's a different thing. Now, shipping can range, according to this, shipping can range $8 to $45 per order in continental U.S. Actual shipping calculated during checkout. But let's check out the specifications, shall we? The overall length of this sword, not including the scabbard, I believe, not including the scabbard, I haven't actually measured this sword without the sire on, is 48 1/4 of an inch. The blade length is 35.5 inches. The weight is 3 pounds 29 ounces. And I don't have a means of verifying that because I do not have a scale. I really need to get a scale for sword weight. The edge, very sharp. It was sharp when I got it, but another thing I should mention is I have sharpened this thing on the Ken Onion Work Sharp, and I've put a razor's edge on this thing. Not hair parting, but razor. And, yeah, that's evidenced by my finger, because I slit my damn finger while cleaning this thing. The thickness is 7mm to 5.9mm, so it has a distal taper of 2.1mm, if I'm not mistaken. The point of balance is 7 3/4 inches from the suba. Again, I do not know because I didn't measure that. I'm going strictly off of what Cult of Athena says. Of course, every sword is going to be slightly off from what the measurements are for that are listed on the site. You can't say every sword is exactly 10 ounces, like every sword has a 40-inch blade and a 12-inch suka, and every sword is like 2 pounds. You have to basically round it out after weighing a shit ton of the same sword. And that's what they do, they average it out. The blade material is 1050 to 1055 high carbon steel. If I click on that, it says 1050 to 1055 high carbon steels are often a choice for a bladed weapon when impact resistance and general durability at an affordable price point is the paramount quality desired. Its carbon content is not high enough to have the detrimental brittleness associated with higher carbon steels, and like many carbon steels, it also has some additional manganese content which increases hardenability. With quality tempering, 1050 to 1055 high carbon steel achieves a relatively uniform hardness that it is quite resistant to shock and impact damage. Thus, it is often used for tools which need toughness, such as hatchets and axes, and this overall toughness can make for a resilient and dependable sword blade. So when you click on the steel types in the specifications section in Cult of Athena, it lists what the steel is generally used for. The type is old katana, which personally to me, with this sword's size and length, I classify it more as a tachi than a old katana, but that's just me personally. Class is battle ready. Culture Japanese. Manufacturer cold steel. Country of origin, of course, China. But those are the specifications of the sword. Now, let's see here. 8 minutes 52 seconds. This is a lot better than the original review I did, which was a shit ton of rambling. Now, let's get on to the sword itself. We'll start with, as Matthew Jenkins says, the kashira. Well, as I stated before, the kashira was just a little bit loose, and during my, well, let's say, exercise. No, I was just going hog wild on tree branches with this thing. In the course of me doing some stupid shit which you probably shouldn't do with a sword, we'll say that, the kashira came off as I was recoiling from the cut. And the kashira is not actually glued on to the suka. That's something that a lot of manufacturers don't get right in the traditional way of securing the suka. Traditionally, you don't glue the suka on, it's friction fit on. So that means it's the suka core The kashira is friction fit to the suka. So you actually have to pound it down a little bit. You have to tap it on. Then once you thread the ito through the kashira and you tie it on the other side, before you tighten down the knot, you actually put glue onto the ito that when you tighten it down and the glue dries, it locks everything in place. You don't put it on the front of the ito when you're tying the knot, because then glue residue will be all up in front of, will be all up in here and everyone will be able to see it, and it's just not as pretty. But yeah, the kashira came off. All these fittings are supposed to be blackened iron. And they definitely don't feel like, just a sec. They don't feel like cheap alloy fittings like you like on my zombie katana wall hanger. These are cheap alloy fittings that have been coated. They look good and they're cool, but they're nowhere near as durable as these. So I'll put this over here because it's too much of a hassle to put that back up there at the moment. So I have no reason to doubt that these are not truly blackened iron fittings just because of the way they feel. And I'm not going to disagree with cold steel, because I have a cold steel warrior. I have the other cold steel sword I have, which is also on my channel as reviewed, is the cold steel MMA Italian longsword, which is the man-at-arms version. Completely black, blackened out, blackety black, 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 as Matt Jensen would say. And that thing is freaking badass. I can't come with it worth shit. If you watch the video with Outlaw Knight, I'm pointing to this thing, but there's no links in this video. I just thought it looked cool. But if you watch the video with Outlaw Knight, you'll see that he can cut with the damn thing pretty damn well, but he's more accustomed to European swords, and I'm more Asiatic swords. But in any case, there's that. I did note that the kasha was loose, and like I said, it came loose in the pursuit of me doing some stupid shit that I probably shouldn't have been doing. But that's why we do these reviews. So you at home will know what the hell will happen if you do stupid shit you shouldn't be doing with a sword. And any of y'all who watch Scallagrim, you're gonna say, oh, he did the same shit Scallagrim did. No, Scallagrim does it a hell of a lot more intensely than I do. He chops whole freaking trees. I was cutting saplings and branches. Yeah, I'm gonna go chop a tree down with this after this. That's confirmed. I'm chopping down a fucking tree with this thing. And probably videoing it. But in any case, moving on. The Suka core is hardwood, and I can tell it's probably some sort of hickory. I think. It doesn't list what wood it's made out of. It just says hardwood. The Samegawa panels are real, with some nice nodules. As far as I'm aware, I'm not an expert on Samegawa or their nodules. But yeah, it's good and it's real. It feels the exact same as my Winter Sun katana, which also has real Samegawa, just not as big a nodules. So this is a slightly better quality Samegawa. Though for $700, I do wish that it came with a full wrap instead of panels. I know I don't usually harp on shit like that, but I'm going to follow suit with a lot of other sword reviewers when it comes to katana. And it's like, if you're going to spend $500 plus on a sword, which I did, you should at least get as much quality and durability as you can possibly get. With this sword, I will 100% 5-star give a recommendation to buy. And quickly, Cold Steel has been put under new management since Lynn Thompson. This may be your last chance to get an original old katana from them. But carrying on, the Manuki are brass Manuki. You can tell by the shiny gold color. And the theme of this sword is warrior theme, which samurai traditionally were mounted archers, so that's why there are arrow themes all around this sword. From the kashira to the fushira and the suba and even the Manuki. Now you're probably wondering, what the hell is this part to the arrow? Well, Japanese arrows and European arrows are two different things. European arrows work on a socket, just like a shovel or a rake. You form a metal cone out from the head of the arrow and you shove it onto the shaft of the, from the arrowhead, you shove it onto the shaft of the, you shove it onto the arrow shaft, and you usually either glue it or wrap it in rawhide that has been soaked in glue and let it dry and secure. In Japan, the arrowheads actually have a tang that I believe are burned into the arrow and then is wrapped with rawhide or sinew to kind of lock that in place. I'm not entirely sure how Japanese arrows are made, but I would like to see how they are made, but that's a topic for another day. So that's why they have tanks. Next we'll move on, as I said, the Ito, next we'll move on from the Kashira to the Ito. And even though it's loose down here now, it's still extremely tight all the way up through the sword. So they did do a good job of wrapping this. The Fushira shares the same arrow-themed fittings as its sister fitting down here, the Kashira. The Suba also shares the arrow fittings, and I like this design of Suba, honestly. A lot of the swords that I draw and I design have this kind of Suba, but with more aggressive corners where these little divots are. But that's a story for another time. Now, to quote Matthew Jensen again, which I do like quoting him because he has some funny quotes, let's get to the pointy pointy stabby stabby part, or as I like to call it, the slash the motherfucker part. Here's the sword blade. It has a fuller running the length of the sword up to the Yakote line, which is actually partially geometric because I do feel a transition here on this side, but not on this side. So they partially made it geometric here. But it has a brass habaki, brass seppa, with an okasaki, and I love okasakis. I'm going to say this, and I don't think I said it in the unboxing, but I've wanted this sword since I was a freshman in high school. This was the very first sword I ever wanted, and I'm not disappointed at all. It has an okasaki, which I love the look of the okasaki, and if you can barely tell, it has a flared kasaki point right here. I don't know if you can tell it or not. It's really ever so slight. You really have to look at it, but it flares out ever so much right here before it tapers down to the point. This thing is thick. Okay, this thing is thick. I said this to my manager at work and he laughed. This thing is thicker than Nicki Minaj's ass. Okay? And I said that in my review, and I still say that now. Now, it has the original factory edge up till here. From here back is original factory. From here upwards is my edge. And even though I've cut with this thing profusely, I want you to know that this sword has not dulled in the slightest. Alright? I've cut branches, I've chopped dry branches with this thing, and it hasn't dulled at all. You put a good edge on this thing, and it will cut anything short of metal. And stone and concrete. Anything that you would anything that you can think to cut with a sword aside from masonry and metal, this thing will cut. It doesn't like cutting water bottles all that much. I found that out. It's not really a light cutter. This thing is a heavy duty, chop your freaking arm off sword. This thing was made to take onto a 15th century battlefield, kill every motherfucker you find, and walk off, and still just shing through paper. I cannot praise this thing any more than that. This is a perfect example of what a real battlefield sword feels like to me. I only wish that the Kasha was more secure. But this gives me an excuse to rewrap this now. Or take the Kasha complete. Or actually, I like the fitting set. So if I take the Suka off, I might take the Suba and exchange it for a bigger one, just because of my preferences. I like big Sukas that cover my whole hand. Or Suba, I should say. Take this Suka off, put a longer one on, rewrap it, but reuse the same Kasha and Fushira. But in any case, this thing is a beast, and I highly recommend it. I will be doing a cutting video later on with this sword. That is coming. I promise you, within the next few weeks, that video will be up. But man, this thing is just... I can't find fault with it. And usually, you'll see on Cult of Athena's website, they say, oh, the Sukas come cracked, and the things are loose, and all that stuff. And I don't doubt them. I've heard that come from many a cold steel manufacturer, but obviously they've stepped up their game when it comes to quality control. Also, Cult of Athena quality controls these things too, but if you gotta admit, if two companies both quality check the same thing and approve on it, then it's good. The only thing that I find fault with is that the Kasha could have been secured tighter. That's really the only thing I can find wrong with this sword. There is nothing else. I have nothing else to gripe about. Honestly. I mean, I'm at a loss for words here. Okay, maybe the lacquering on the sire could be a little thicker. And now that I really hold the sire, I've not actually really held this sire in my hand a lot. I've only just used it on, put it through my belt, or as you can see, rigged it up to swing it over my back. But it actually starts out wide here and then tapers down. You can't tell. It starts out thick, then tapers. And I think it even does a little bit on this plane as well, but this sire feels ridiculously light. Like, the sire on my Dragon King katana felt heavier than this. And that's something I'd like to see as a possible quality control change. A heavier, denser sire. Something that really, when you pick it up, you feel secure, knowing that this thing is going to do its job, it's going to house your blade effectively, and if it comes around to it, you can beat a motherfucker senseless with it. Okay? The sire is a weapon too. Most people are like, oh, a sire isn't a weapon, it's a place of peace, and yada. Bullshit. This is a wooden tube, A. B, if you recognize a baseball bat as a weapon, think a wooden baseball bat, people. Wooden sire. Do you not see the similarity here? If I can beat the shit out of a motherfucker with this, Why can't I beat the fuck out of a sumbitch with this? Be like Yoda against R2-D2. Mine! But in any case, that's the second thing I'd like to see. Well, third thing. Thicker lacquering, because the lacquering's good already, because I probably just fucked it up, but in any case, sturdier lacquering, I'm just going to say that, and a thicker, more robust sire. I don't think they got all the sawdust out of this thing when they were making it, because I'm getting little sawdust flakes falling out of this thing. All over my pants. But at least it didn't come with some weird ass waxy powder shit like my longsword did. So that's a major plus. The Sageo cord on the sire is just your simple basic nylon Sageo, nothing to write home about. It does its job, it's good. A lot of people complain about the Sageo quality, but in my opinion, you can always change out your Sageo. Hell, take a piece of paracord, cut it to the length you want, tie it to the Koiguchi, and boom, you instantly have a far sturdier Sageo than you did before. I don't want to get complaining about the Sageo quality, because the Sageo really isn't necessary for a sword if you have the right setup. Put this thing through a sword frog on a longsword belt, and it would do the same job as a Sageo. Or put this thing through your belt. The Koiguchi will stop it, and you really don't have to worry about it falling out because the Koiguchi's there. So unless that Koiguchi comes off, the sire ain't going to fall out. And the Sageo, even if you tie it to the belt, you have to remember that the Koiguchi is the only thing keeping a cord you've basically just crisscrossed around a tube from falling out of your belt. So everything depends on the Koiguchi to keep this thing in your belt. The Sageo is really just there for ease of use. But I guess that's all I have to say. Damn, this video has turned out to be longer than I thought it would be. But I did want to give you my full thoughts and opinions on this sword, and I hope I haven't rambled on too much. So, until next time, my noble band of outlaws, and you can't, one more thing. You can't see it too well, but there are stains on this sword that I'm going to have to take a 600 grit piece of sandpaper to later. But, in any case, until next time, my noble band of outlaws, Outlaw Samurai, tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe in using your weapons, and I'm out. Peace.